Okay, so today is the 7-year anniversary of my oldest sister's unexpected death. And I know that a lot of people have experienced hard deaths like that. And I think some people get kind of stuck and they sometimes almost force themselves to stay in this grieving process and they don't go through the stages. And so then they don't move on from that. And I just want to talk about that a little bit. I'm okay talking about it. I've accepted her death. I look at it entirely differently than what I ever did before, and that's brought me a lot of peace of mind. And so I wanted to share a little information here on death and the grieving process and that because I know there's people out there that might watch this that have experienced a really hard death and may not really know how to move on from that. So like I said, pretty much all of us, we either have or we will at some point in our life experience a hard death. Some people are going to handle the experience really well. They might go through the stages of grief and then return to living their life with a positive outlook and maybe not even having any disturbance in their normal day-to-day life whatsoever. Typically there's 5 stages of grief that somebody is going to experience. Those stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. You don't necessarily have to feel them in that order. You might feel just one of them, you might feel a few of them, you might feel all of them, or you might even not feel any of them at all. So we all experience this differently, and there's no judgment to how we experience grief, and nobody can tell you how you should experience it. This is just typically how it goes down for most people. So I'm going to discuss them in order of how they typically are experienced. Like I said, it's not always the case, but typically that's how they're experienced, and I'm going to discuss them in that way. So first, we have the first stage of denial. So denial really simply is that it's denial that the death even took place in the first place. So this is where you might feel like this person just went on a vacation and they'll be back later. This is where it just doesn't seem real, and you deny the fact that this even happened. You don't think about it. It just, nope. The next stage that will take place normally is your anger and your guilt. So that's pretty self-explanatory too. So that's where we get mad at the world. Okay, we get mad at the world. We try to blame and point fingers. Suddenly it's the doctor's fault for not doing their job right. It's this person's fault, that person's fault, this person didn't do what they were supposed to do, that person didn't do what they were supposed to do, and everybody failed, and now this person died. Okay, so it's blaming, pointing fingers and blaming somebody else's fault that this person died. And then there's also the guilt side of that. So that's where you actually blame yourself. So that's where you might find yourself asking, like, or wondering, like, blaming yourself, like, why, I should have did this, or why did I do that, if I would have done this, then it still would have happened. So you carry this guilt that somehow you could have saved this person's life, by doing more of this or less of that, or being more whatever. But you start blaming other people, and you start blaming yourself, and you have anger and you have guilt. And then the next one is bargaining. So this is the stage where you might actually wish or ask to switch places with the person that has passed on. So you might ask questions like, why did this happen, and it should have been me? Or you might make statements like, this isn't fair. And then the next stage is depression. So depression's when the loss disrupts your quality of life. The thing is that not everybody's going to experience depression in this way. Depression is going to last a while. Most people are going to when they're going through this process, they're not actually going to experience full-on depression. Okay, they're just going to be sad. And there's a difference, but the term depression gets thrown around, and every time we're sad, we automatically say we're depressed, but really you're not depressed. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine of how much that gets thrown around, because it really doesn't exist as often as what it is put out there that it does. And it's just because that term literally has been tossed around so much. But when real depression strikes, it's not just a sad couple of days or a sad week. It is something that literally impacts everything in your life, okay? So you lose interest in things or people that you used to love, okay? You need all of the support, but yet you want solitude at the same time. Okay, it's total like a mix up. You're from left field and right field, you're just completely mixed up. You want all of the solitude, but you want all of the support. Okay? You will lose interest in the things that you used to enjoy. It's hard to get out of bed. You don't want to shower anymore. There's no self-care. You can't even get up to cook food for your family, okay? Real depression hits, and it hits hard. And that's why I say that the term is tossed around so much, because you see people that are like, oh, I'm so depressed because I lost my job and I'm so upset. And yet they can still go out and hang out with their friends. And they can still hop in their car, and they can, are still functioning perfectly fine, and they're making it. They're just sad, and it only lasts for a little while, and then it's gone. Real depression, it is a struggle just to do any of that stuff. It takes a toll on you, and it takes a toll on you for a long time. Anyway, so then you get to your fifth stage, and that fifth stage is acceptance, and that is when you finally come to terms with the death, and you're able to accept that you don't have any control over this, that this has happened and this is just the way it is. So you get to that point where you just become a little more accepting that it's happening, that you didn't have control over, there was nothing you could do to change it, and it is what it is. Your life kind of returns to normal at this point. You heal, the quality of your life improves, and you start to find joy in it again. Okay, some people, unfortunately, they're not going to reach that point. And the reason that they don't reach that point is because they refuse to allow themselves to. So they suffer what is known as chronic or acute grief. And in our culture, for some odd reason, okay, and it's so weird because other cultures they don't think like ours, okay? We are so lost. Seriously, I mean, I should clarify, we're in the United States, okay, is what I'm talking about. But we are so lost, and we are so behind other cultures. Like, it's unbelievable. Anyway, so in our culture, for some reason, we've been conditioned to believe that we have to feel sadness after loss continuously. Like, you can't move on and be happy without that person. You need to always feel sad about losing that person. It needs to resurface and circulate in your mind and make you feel immense pain and suffering every time you think about them. For some reason, we live in a culture that thinks that's okay. Whatever. We feel like we have to replay this tragedy in our minds over and over again, that we have to find every reason we can to continue grieving, or we're led to believe that we're cold, that we're heartless, or that we just didn't care about that person as much as we should have. This is something that's very common in American culture, but it's nearly taboo within other cultures. See, other cultures look at it like it's the ultimate transition. Like, you are such an enlightened and, you know, awakened being that you're beyond what Earth can provide to you anymore, and now it's time to transition and move on, because you've just reached like the totem pole here. You just reached the top of this. You can't go any further. You have to transition into a whole new existence, a whole new realm. And other cultures look at it that way, and it's a beautiful way to look at it. It's absolutely, I mean, it's just wow, like, and instead we look at it like, oh, it's just a horrible, horrible thing, and it's just not. So in doing this, because our minds are wired naturally to feed off of the negative, which our minds are like that. Like I said, America's so far behind from other cultures because other cultures, their minds are wired to do the same thing as ours, to feed off of the negative, and yet they don't suffer from all these mental illnesses. They don't have all these issues that we have. They're so much more at peace with themselves and with each other, and it's because they know this. They realize that this is all mind games. This is their ego playing games on them, and they're bigger than that. In America, we're we act like our ego is like our best friend, and that's who we should listen to. And really, that's who we want to just be like, okay, thanks for trying to keep me safe. Now move on out, because me and my subconscious are coming in, and we're I mean, it's just crazy how America is so different, and we're so miserable. We're such a, sad. We're such a miserable culture. And then we look down on these other cultures all the times, and really they're the ones we should be learning from. They got it all figured out. We're really behind on everything. So anyways, because we feed off of that, we force ourselves to do those things, to just be miserable, to feel miserable, and repeat this cycle over and over again, relive the tragedy over and over again. We will sit there and we will feed these feelings of sadness and this grief, causing them initially to feel more intensely, and for a longer period of time, simply because we just won't allow ourselves to, accept it and move on from it. We force ourselves to just stay in that tragedy and stay in that sadness. And for a really long period of time too, which really isn't necessary at all. So often, sometimes we don't allow ourselves to even like heal at all. We won't reach that stage of acceptance, and then we suffer and we suffer and we suffer every single day for the rest of our lives. And it's just insane that we would put ourselves through so much misery and grief like that when we don't have to. And of course you're gonna have losses that are much harder to accept than others. Like, if your grandparent dies, it's a hard loss. But grandma and grandpa were old, like, you knew it was coming. But if you lose a child, it's a whole different pain. You're supposed to go before your child. You're not supposed to experience that. That's not the way the timeline is supposed to work, but sometimes that's what happens. And so, trying to keep that mindset and find almost the comfort or the peace and almost the beauty in their transition can be so hard. But trying to think of it that whatever their purpose was fulfilled. They were awakened, they were enlightened, they succeeded in whatever their life purpose was, and now it's time for them to move on into greater and better things, is one way, to look at it, to try and find that beauty. But that doesn't take away the initial hurt that it causes when you lose somebody like that. So there's some people that don't ever even seem to show grief. And these people are often thought to have something that's wrong with them because they can just, it's like it doesn't faze them. It's like they're in complete avoidance or denial of the reality, when in actuality, they're really actually simply pretty healthy people. They've already developed the understanding and the acceptance surrounding that inevitable experience of death. They don't have a fear of death. It's the people that actually have somewhat of a fear of death that are going to have a harder time accepting it. These really, mentally healthy people who don't have that fear of death, they're the ones that are going to be able to kind of accept and move on a little bit easier from the whole thing. And oftentimes, those who are not on those people's level of understanding and, and acceptance of it, they feel that those people need to talk about it. So they pressure them all the time to talk about it, to feel the sadness, that they need to be reminded of the tragedy in order to live within this reality, even though they're probably living in more of a reality than the person in denial is. That person in denial is the one that's like, you need to talk about it, like, it's okay to feel sad, you can cry, like, you can break down, like, every time you see them, or like maybe a song comes on or something, you'll be like, oh, do you remember when so-and-so loved this? And, and it's like you try to bring that back, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to find comfort and keep that memory alive, but what they're doing is keeping themselves stuck in that grieving process and unable to really move forward with that. And then they're bringing these healthy people kind of down to that level when those people have already worked through it. Now you get some people who maybe haven't, and they do need to be told, like, hey, you can talk about it, and you're gonna know whether the person is struggling or whether that person has accepted it and is okay. And if you feel like the person's okay, don't try to force them to feel the emotions and to be sad and all of that. There's really no reason to do that, because in doing so, you're actually jeopardizing their well-being, and you're creating more negativity in your own life and slowing down your own healing process. So just don't do that. Everybody's going to grieve differently. And some people are going to go through all of these stages. Some people are going to get to the stage of maybe just denial, and then the next stage they're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, like, this happened, and they're going to move on. And it might take them only, a few days, and maybe it'll take them a week. Maybe for some people it's going to take them years. There's no timeline to how long it takes. Some people might go through this grieving process for such a long time, but the point is to don't keep yourself stuck in one specific stage. Allow yourself to move through them. When you start noticing that life is starting to get better, let it get better. If you're someone who's going through these grief stages right now, remember that your feelings are normal. But just avoid dwelling on the loss or forcing yourself to remain within one stage of that process. That's not going to help you move through the necessary stages in order to heal. Okay, it's just going to keep you stuck, and you're going to keep recycling and revisiting this pain over and over, and this suffering over and over again. And what kind of life is that? So instead, forgive, accept the unknown. You're not going to know why that person was gone. You're really not going to know why did they get cancer and cancer took them? Why did they die in the car accident? Why did they take their own life? Why did somebody else take their life? You're not going to know the answer to that. Okay, but you need to accept the unknown and accept that you don't have the answer. You need to allow yourself to move through the stages at your own pace. You don't have to move through them at the same pace as everybody else, or that anybody else thinks you need to. You can move it through them on your own pace. If it takes you just a few days or a week or a month and you're good, awesome. And if it takes you 10 years to move through all the stages, that's okay too. Just keep yourself from dwelling in one stage. Don't keep revisiting it. Move through them as they come. Allow yourself to feel better without convincing yourself that by feeling better, you're forgetting the person or forgetting their memory. Okay, you're not. You are absolutely not forgetting the person or their memory. You're healing, and that's okay. Let yourself heal. Pulling yourself back into that grief rut at any time is only going to prolong the feelings of sadness associated with the loss. So if somebody brings up a memory of the person and that person gets sad, don't feel like because that person is sad with that memory that you now have to feel sad too. If you are in a good mood and laughing and having a great day, stay in a good mood and laughing and having a great day. You don't have to go down to their level to where they're at and meet them there. You don't have to do that, okay? When it comes to grieving in that, move through this at your own pace. There's times where like my family will, some family members will have such a hard time. A song will come on and it'll be triggering and emotional for them because they're going through these stages on their own. And me, I listen to it and I'm like smiling because I'm like, yeah, I remember, driving in the car with her and and it's a good memory to me. And for them, it's a sad, painful memory because she's not here anymore, and so they haven't moved through all of those stages yet to where they've gotten to acceptance, to where they can talk about these memories and they can hear these songs and they can, see the pictures and it not, be triggering to make them sad or angry or whatever again. So those people are moving through it at their own pace, and you absolutely do not have to move through it at their pace. Move at your own. So there's things that you can kind of do that can help you to kind of move through the process a little bit without overflowing and clouding your mind with the loss that you just experienced. So some of those are like getting involved in new activities, maybe starting a new hobby or whatever, embracing good moments that you have in your life and replaying those moments in your head rather than the negative ones. So talk about the good moments that happen, set goals in your life, and then take action to achieving those goals, and just literally engage in spirituality of some sort. I'm telling you, like, I don't care what it is that you do, but do something that makes your heart feel good, okay? That helps you find the meaning of your own life. So whether that's going to church, then go to church. If that's, becoming a Buddhist monk and practicing Buddhism, then do that. If it means creating your own little sanctuary place you can go to meditate or, whatever, to do yoga or whatever the case may be. Or maybe you are, you want to start studying shamanism or something, like, or heck, voodoo. I don't care what it is, okay? Because nothing is bad if it's got good intentions behind it. And just, figure that out. Find something that you're passionate about, that resonates with you, that makes you feel good, and do it. Focus on your life and on the present moment, and not the life that you would have had if the tragedy had not taken place. Because when you're focusing on how your life would be different had the circumstances been different and that person not have died, you're putting yourself back into a grief rut, okay? So you're like rewinding your process. Don't do that. So focusing on the loss and where that person would be now, or how your life is going to be different, is it just fuels all of that grief, and it increases all of the negative feelings that are associated with the loss. So, focus on your life, focus on the present, focus on the people that are still physically in your life, and hold no regrets. So who cares if you didn't pick up the phone the last time they called? Okay? You can't drop everything in your life for other people all the time, and that's not your fault. But we'll hold ourselves hostage to that thought and thinking, that we did wrong from just silly little things like that. That, that you really, you can't focus on those. You got to forgive yourself for those things. We are not perfect. And you can't always just stop and take the call, right? I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you just don't have that access or that availability to do that. So don't dwell on that stuff. But in saying that, I do want to say also that, forgive people. So if you're angry with people right now, keep in mind that those people may not always be around. And when they go, you are more likely probably going to suffer some guilt because you were angry with that person. And when it's their time to go, you're going to have that guilt and feel like I coulda, shoulda, woulda, So to avoid setting yourself up for that, just forgive now. It doesn't mean that you have to go be their best friend, and like hang out all the time and like everything has to be, you have to be super close and in contact all the time. No, but just forgive them. It's as simple as that. Forgive them so that you're not holding on to that guilt when their time comes, because that happens a lot, and then, forgive yourself for, things that maybe grudges you've held or whatever, and, move on from all that stuff, because you're just going to set yourself up for a lot more pain and suffering when the time comes and what's really necessary. So that's just my advice there. Anyway, I don't know. I just kind of, thought that it was something that would be beneficial to talk about, and considering the fact that it is the 7-year anniversary of my sister's death, and I know that I've got a lot of her friends and family members that watch this channel and, have a hard time still with that, and it's okay. It's not an easy loss. It was a hard loss. She impacted a lot of lives. We've all got a whole lot of different memories and, experiences with her. She really impacted a whole big range of different people and how she's impacted them. So I thought it was like good timing to post this. So again, if you have questions, and if you're struggling to actually move on and just kind of forgive and find that acceptance and let go and move through the process, feel free to comment on this video, or you can email me at soulscapes.wellness@gmail.com, and I can kind of help you through the process, this grief process. You're also welcome to go to my website, and you can contact me from there as well, and that website is soulscapeswellness.weebly.com. Also, if you'd like to try a release ritual that might help you in accepting this loss and moving on and letting it go, search for my videos, Soul Release. I have a little mini 15-minute video on there of a soul release ritual that I have done with my sister that really helped me kind of move on with that, and also one that I did with a friend of mine. Same ritual, different intentions. So search for that video if you'd like, and that might also help you. We'll talk to you later.